Around the SEC, brought to you by Precision Chemical and Equipment. Come check out our selection of Exmark, Yazoo keys, and Dixon zero-turn radius mowers, located 1/2 mile south of Siegen on Airline Highway. The Alabama Crimson Tide.
Nick Saban says wide receiver Deron Carter is not likely to play this season. Highly touted JUCO transfer from Ohio State formerly. Probably is going to have to redshirt. Saban says Alabama has not received and might not receive one piece of information on Carter. Without it, Carter would have to live there for a year to be eligible. He would have 2 seasons of eligibility remaining.
The Georgia Bulldogs.
Georgia's situation on the offensive line turned suddenly precarious yesterday, even more so than it already had been. Starting right guard Chris Burnett went down in practice with a knee injury. Meanwhile, we found out that offensive lineman Colton Houston is currently ineligible with an NCAA issue. Compounding the seriousness of the situation is that former starting left guard Canarius Gates just returned to practice from an injured ankle that's had him sidelined since the first half of the first game of the season. Not looking good on the line in Athens. What we do know is that Marlon Brown is expected to be sidelined for a second straight week with an ankle injury. So freshman Malcolm Mitchell will get his third start in 4 games at split end. He's currently the Bulldogs' leading receiver with 14 catches, 159 yards, and 2 scores.
The Arkansas Razorbacks.
Defensive end Jake Beckett remains questionable for the SEC opener at Alabama, and Bobby Petrino and his coaches are not tipping their hand as to his status. Asked if Beckett would be available Saturday, Bobby Petrino said, quote, "We still don't know that," end quote. Something interesting is that Arkansas is the only SEC team to score a touchdown on the first possession of the game in each of its first 3 games. Tough sledding in Bryant-Denny Stadium this weekend to keep that streak alive.
The Auburn Tigers.
Fullback Ladarius Phillips and defensive back Jonathan Rose have been cleared to play Saturday. They did not make the trip to Clemson last week because of an undisclosed violation of team rules. Meanwhile, linebacker Jonathan Evans didn't make the trip to Clemson because of a shoulder injury. His status for Florida Atlantic on Saturday is uncertain. Although Gene Chizik said his Tigers have responded well since the loss to Clemson. Quote, "I feel good in where we are improvement-wise." Probably won't need to be that good to beat Florida Atlantic.
The Vanderbilt Commodores.
And a little bit of an injury update there in Nashville. Tight end Brandon Barden and tailback Warren Norman will travel to South Carolina, but their status remains in doubt. Barden's been battling an ankle injury, Norman a knee injury. James Franklin said, quote, "If we need them, they're available to play." Also found out that defensive end Kyle Woostman, who's been out with a leg injury, didn't play last week, practiced and should be available for the game this week at South Carolina. It's going to be interesting when South Carolina and Vandy get together. Over their last 4 meetings, believe it or not, Vandy and South Carolina have split those 2 apiece and have scored the exact identical number of points, 58 each. Something to keep an eye on, though, is that Wesley Tate, who had a team-high 4 catches last week, is expected to get the second start of his career. Wide receiver John Cole with a leg injury is out again this week for the Commodores. There you have it. That is around the SEC.